And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. I'm looking for the right camera. There it is. And we are having a great show. We're returning a return visit from Jim Feast, who's been here many times, and the beautiful Chung, who has been here once before and is the author of the book that you see behind us and we'll be talking about today. It's called Among the Boat People, a memoir of Vietnam. Chung is the author, and she joins us here in the studios of Let Them Talk. So welcome, guys. Welcome back.
Great
to WBAI. And I love it because, you know, of course, I have as big an ego as anybody. And when you mentioned there are three people who are key to helping you write this book, and there I am, Paul DiRienzo, an acclaimed writer on nuclear power's hidden seamy history, political analyst and WBAI radio host, invited me on his community channel cable TV show to talk more about my now refreshed memories. Well, thank you. I really, really appreciate that. That's one of the small things in life that make me so happy. You know, it's a little thing, but I love that. Thank you so much. So it was an amazing story. You told it to us back the last time you were on, a couple of years ago, right now. And but it's such a great story. It's worth retelling and telling again. And you recently were reading at an event.
Yes. Yeah, that's the last Friday, the January 17th. Yeah, and
tell us about that.
And it was very cold. It was a very cold night, and I kind of worried that maybe nobody show up. But then when I walked in the place, like 10 minutes before the reading started, like the place packed, and then I was like, wow. And at first I was so nervous, but then when I see the audience all sitting there waiting, and I feel so relaxed.
That's good because they love the book and the story, an amazing story. And there you are. That's your picture, right? That's you.
Yeah, that's me when I was 17 years old.
Wow. Well, you're even more beautiful today, so welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So boat people, you know, I of a generation and age where I know what boat people are. They were a headline news story, as big a news story as impeachment of Donald Trump at the time, and there was a horrific plane crash, for example, of children who were leaving Vietnam. And this is basically all the people who were trying to get out of Vietnam after the United States withdrew. Yes. After, 20 years of war that pretty much went nowhere and did not achieve any of the goals it was supposed to, and just turned into, it seemed to me anyway, turned into just a bloody slog in the jungle with no real purpose, and a lot of ego and male macho ego that drove the President of the United States to not want to admit it was a lost cause to the public. No President of the United States wants to admit they lost the war. And they somehow managed to lose that one. So, and I think it's a very key now during this impeachment hearing, because it was a lot of people look at that event, the America's loss of the Vietnam War, and that's what it was, as the beginning of the set of events that have led us to the situation we're in now. We won't go into all of that, but I find that interesting. So in that way, when we talk to each other, in my mind, we're talking to someone who experienced the events that set America on a new course. And you came to America, you were trying to get here. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
It was a sad story because I came out with my mother and my older brother and my younger sister, but they, unfortunately, they were drowned. So I'm the only one survived when I came out with my family, and I had a hard time because when I came to New York, I don't have anybody. Although I was like sponsored by my stepbrother, but I don't want to give him any burden. So after I get to his house, he picked me up at the airport, and then after a few weeks, then I just left New Jersey. Left his home and just moved to New York and start my new life. And then I had.
Where did you move? What was your first neighborhood in the United States?
That's what in Queens. In Queens, there I live in a small room in a basement, and I cried a lot at that time because I remember there was like Christmas, and then I was so cold and I have no money to buy the blanket, and outside was snowing, and I cried a lot because I live in the basement. They have this Chinese owner. They have they make it like 5-6 small room in the basement, but we share the kitchen and the bathroom. So then we all have our room, one single bed, and one little closet, and that's it. And there's no heat. And I was like so cold, and then I was crying because I came from a big family, and then I don't have to worry about money, and but then when I came to New York, and then all by myself, and then I have no money, so I was like very, very sad, and I had a very, very difficult life when I came to New York.
You got a job you went to educational system on Chinatown Manpower?
Yeah, and then I was lucky that I get in this Chinatown Manpower, this organization. They always take people like new immigrant or refugee, and then they give you courses like accountant and like bank teller, like typing course. So I was lucky to get in, and I passed the test. And then I was like there for like 5 months to train as a like accounting clerk. But then at the end, all my friends in my classroom, they got their job in a bank or big company. But I'm the only one that nobody want to hire me because I don't have a green card. I'm only holding they call I-94, a refugee card. With no picture, nothing, just a number. So they say, I don't know what this card, we have never seen this before, sorry, and then we couldn't hire you. So eventually I didn't get the job. So
how did you survive?
And then I got a job in they call Azuma. It's a Japanese gift shop in 86th Street, Manhattan. And I was trying to be a cashier and also sales lady. And I don't even know how to use the money because I've never seen your money before. They had to train me, this is a nickel, this is a quarter, this is a dime. And like, oh my God, it's like so complicated like to me. Like, and then I have to like be careful when I speak English because my English is like wasn't that good at that time. But I was able to like speak some spoken English. And then I knew some of the people there working there, and then they're all young, like young men and young girls. They're all like going to college. So it inspired me. I said, oh, I better go to college like these people. That's why I started to like apply for the the school, go to this called New York City Technical College, and there was a picture in my book that I was standing in front of the school and taking a picture with my 2 classmates. That's the first school I went there because the 2-year college, they don't have much requirement. But you should have to take the test. I remember I failed all the tests, math test, reading test, writing test. I only get 1 course that I can get 3 credit. I think it's a psychology course, and then the other 3 courses I don't have credit.
Psychology.
I know, I don't even know what's that. And the professor was talking. I don't know what he's talking about.
Welcome to the club. Mine was political science.
Oh yeah. Like,
great, cool. So okay, great. But then, how did you meet this guy, Jim?
The same school.
Yeah, he was a tutor in the tutoring center.
Okay.
And I was a student in this 2-year college, and then they have this called like what do you call that?
Writing center.
Yeah, no, they let the student get a part-time job like 20 hours a week, like something like that, or less than that, and then they put me in this writing center. That's how I met him.
Yeah.
And my job is to sit there, and anybody coming here want to need help for the writing, like, and then I'm the one that registered them, and then he the one also helped me to look over my paper.
Sure.
So that's how I met him, and he. Yeah. How come you talk to me? I mean,
she gave me this paper, and the teachers gave an assignment. How has your things that you learned been helpful to you in your later life? So, and then she turns me her paper, and I said, most Chinese are not very open about their past, but she writes like, I was very glad I learned how to swim, because otherwise I would have drowned with the rest of my family when our boat sank. And she was on a boat of which 600 people, only 200 survived after it sank. So that's a pretty open to state that kind of traumatic event.
Right. We skipped over that at the beginning because it's so dramatic that I wanted to really get to it, maybe through the reading. And you've brought actually some samples of your book, and maybe you could, this is a good time for you to read part of your book, and we can get some idea of what this book, where can people get this book, by the way?
AK Press distributor, or at Autonomous Media, which is the publisher, and
is it on Amazon? It's on Amazon.
Yeah, also on Amazon.
For most people, you just go to Amazon and look it up, right? Among the boat people, and I've read part of it, and it has photos. The photos are pretty amazing as well.
Yeah, the first
your
picture
family,
of my family.
Right? Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, that one, right.
All right. So here's your family here in the picture.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's a good opportunity to read a little piece of this book.
Okay.
Let me explain though, can I? 'Cause
Yes.
I was the editor of the book, but the first she describes where she learned to swim. The book is about swimming, where she learned to swim before the communist takeover. Then she's going to read that part. Then there's some stuff we're going to skip, but then she describes the same pool after the communist takeover. So
Right.
she read before and after.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. The pool at the Savoy Club, Saigon, 1967. The wind in the room. Sometimes that's the only thing you would hear, but other times the club would be a hive of activity with waiters, sunners, diners by the food counter, and children bounding through the waiting area, but the main indoor pool would be empty. Ringing one side of the pool would be the French women in string bikinis with their shapely legs, their bodies creamy with suntan lotion. These Europeans seldom went in the water, so the club was filled with swimming suit-wearing people who never swam. This made the pool like a bay that was empty but surrounded by ships in dry dock. When I was 15 years old, I learned to swim there. I felt tiny as I walked along past the row of reclining, full-bodied white women. As a rule, the Savoy Club was closed to Chinese, but because my father was a manager for the Taiwanese of a large textile factory, our family was allowed to be members. If you reach a certain standard, you can join this club. So as a child, I was able to join and learn to swim there. Everybody who went in the pool had to take a shower first. But there's a woman with a mean face, and she's watching you to make sure you take a shower. You don't take a shower, and she says, "Go back and take a shower." So the water is very clean. When the French women swam, the delicate strings of their slim necks and shoulders were visible. I love to see their masculine arms draped in water so transparent that they seemed to be swimming in a glass of white wine.
Go to.
Saigon, 1976. I stood looking at the pool, clouded, sooty, and lime-colored. The water teemed with the sandy bodies of Vietnamese. Many of the swimmers were veterans, scarred, disfigured, delimbed, so the swimming was erratic. There were no discernible lanes such as the Europeans had established. Everyone was swimming, paddling, and flopping this way and that. Looking closer, I saw the water appeared greasy. There was no chlorine smell, but an odor of sweat, urine, and burnt rubber. I dove in. I think I was the only Chinese in the club. It was the same Savoy Club that had been seized by the government and now opened to party members and factory operatives. Since our factories had been taken over, I had been running a machine, and this entitles me to use the pool. I mentioned that the French had kept a woman at the door leading from the shower to the swimming area. She looked as stern as a cow that stands at the gate of hell. The lady turned back anyone who had not showered. Now that woman was gone, and people walked in off the street. Trunks, underclothes, stripped at waterside and jumped in. Since not many people had running water at home in those days, I think, some used the pool for bathing, not for recreation. I broke the surface angry. Some swimmers had lashed me along the leg, making my flesh sting. I had a gagging taste in my mouth. Usually when you are in the pool, you swim from this side to that side and then back to this side in a line. But these people swam in all kinds of directions. I could not swim because they hit you everywhere. They may not do it intentionally, but you feel people's hands on your body. I swam one length, then removed myself from the messy pool. Admittedly, there was equality. It was not the French and the Americans taking everything. Now no one had anything. I walked away, pushing aside a trace of wind that swept my dirty hair.
Great. And that is, you're reading from your book, A Memoir of Vietnam by Chung. And now, what led you to your family to want to leave Vietnam? So you seem to be existing, you're working, this is after the North Vietnamese have unified the country, the United States has gone in chaotic retreat and has begun the long process of forgetting they were even there, or where it is on the map, or anything that has to do with it at all. And you're still there, right? And you're not Vietnamese, your family is Chinese,
Yes.
right? But you were born and raised in Vietnam.
Yes.
But that's still a big difference there.
Yes, we will consider Chinese. And,
how can they tell?
Because our last name, and yeah, they can tell the last name like Chung.
Yeah.
In Vietnam, the Vietnamese people, they don't have last name is Chung.
Nice. So they would say.
Yes.
And so was there discrimination because you were Chinese?
Yeah. And also when you apply the ID, they ask you like you originally where, then you have a claim from China, because my father came from China when he was 15 years old. So they know that where you came from. Like, go back to like generations like so.
Right. The geopolitics is amazing to me because I always thought that China helped Vietnam, yet then they had a war with Vietnam, and then there's still discrimination between Vietnamese and Chinese. So it was basically they helped Vietnam because it was necessary to help them at a certain time, but that didn't mean they were friends.
Well, I think it's also because the Chinese almost like control the economy of Vietnam, because the Chinese they know how to do business. Like just like here you see Canal Street, all the jewelry store, and then in Vietnam same thing, the jewelry store, a big like a supermarket, okay, it's owned by Chinese. And Chinese people they know how to do business. Also they know how to invest money. They work very hard. But I'm not saying that the Vietnamese are not good as a Chinese, but that's the fact is that we work harder. We work harder, and then we save money and we help our relatives and friends.
Right. And that's a story all over Asia. And Chinese people often do get a lot of discrimination in the East because of that, while Jewish people can live there and nobody even knows the difference. And then here we have Jewish people who have to go through this nightmare, right? For the same reason, right?
Same reason,
yes.
Where you go. And then and after the North Vietnam took over the South Vietnam, and there's no job. And then they don't like the southern, like we belong to the South. They don't like the people in the South at all. All the government job, like airport, any government job, okay, like only the people who from North Vietnam can take it.
Is that because of the cultural differences? One side, when the South was more French and the North was nationalistic, or is it just a even more deep-seated?
They just don't want you. They just don't want you. You belong to the South, they don't want you. They want people from the North.
Right.
So when you go to the airport, they all speak North Vietnamese accent.
Right.
No Southern accent. All Vietnamese.
Right.
So that's like they discriminate you. You never have a chance to, even your children.
Right.
Next generation. Yeah.
So your dad decided this is a good time to get out.
Well, my dad died of a heart attack.
Sorry to hear that.
In the book I mentioned, and then my uncle's the one that because there's no job and how can we survive? Then my uncle owned a jewelry store like the one in Canal Street, and then in the book I also mentioned that he had a little door in his house that he hide all his jewelry in there, and he take it out, sell it slowly, and that's how we survive. But in the long term, those jewelry eventually will be gone. That's why we had to get out before we run out of the money.
Right.
Then my mother had to go to my uncle and ask for money every month to buy the food to eat because we don't have money. And then all the relatives, my cousin, my aunt, they all rely on my uncle to help us to survive.
I see.
So once my uncle heard that there's a boat going out, then he will say, okay, he will arrange all our relatives to get out. So
she points out that they confiscated the money, and you had to, they changed the money, so you could not say, here I have $100. You can't. You got to go in. If you have $10,000, to get the new type of money, they give you a very limited amount, and then you get ration coupons to buy rice every week.
They changed money twice after the.
To keep people from saving too much of it and hoarding it.
And then very difficult to survive. And then,
but the ration gives you only a limited amount of rice you can buy.
The rice,
you said bad rice, right?
And bad rice too. And the rice had a lot of sand or things I mentioned in the book. Sand, crust, and then you pick up. By the time you pick up everything, you only have maybe less than 1/3 you can eat it, and the rest you cannot eat it.
So what was it like leaving? So you were allowed to leave. It was
we escaped secretly.
You had to leave secretly, so you're not allowed to leave Vietnam.
Oh no, secretly, and that's why we paid. My uncle paid the gold for each person, 12 pieces of gold for each person. Then we sneak out at the night to go to I don't know, like Thổ Đức, far away from the city, and then sneak in the ship. They were sitting there waiting, the boat.
Right.
Everything is secretly, no open.
It had to be secret. So what happened then? That's the sad part of the story.
Well, people who can escape safely, they get out. But the one like mine, too many people, and then they
big family.
Right, and also like the owner of the ship is very greedy. He took in a lot of people. Got a lot of gold. Then he hide all the gold under the boat, and then too heavy. Then the boat was capsized after we left not far away. That's why in the book I mentioned they found my mother's body and my sister's body. It go back to the
so sad.
The shore.
But you could swim. You were able to swim.
Yeah, I was able to swim. But my younger sister, she was 18. She was also able to swim, but he couldn't make it. And then in the boat I mentioned that later my relative, they found her body that she had a deep cut in her head. I think maybe she fell and hit something.
Right. That often happens.
Yeah,
in these kind of situations.
That's what I thought. I don't know what happened.
So it was partly you could swim, which was what you read to us, the experience of learning to swim at a French pool.
Yeah.
And then when the boat that was taking you was a boat person in your family capsized, you were the only survivor of your family?
Oh, 4 people came out from my family. I'm only one at that time, the only survivor.
And then
my mother and my brother.
How did you what happened? You weren't arrested, or at that point everybody would have known?
Yeah, I wasn't arrested, but after the boat was capsized, then I was in the book I also mentioned that I was able to grab some bar like that in the front, and I grabbed it, and then the boat keeps sinking down, and then eventually and then there's another boat.
It popped back up again, right?
Yeah, I was like.
It went.
Right, like Titanic, like this.
Yeah.
And then people lie down, like.
Oh my gosh.
And screaming, but then there's another boat behind us. There's a lot of boats coming out and save the one who's still in the water.
Right.
Like the one, like old one and the baby, they all gone. Like nobody is saving anybody. You have to save for yourself. I mean, like the old one, they don't know how to swim, or the baby.
Right.
So that's why in the book I mentioned that
no lifeguards.
When the boat was capsized, I know my mother and my older brother, they could not make it because they don't know how to swim. But I think that me and my sister can survive. But then still later I found that she's gone too. Now I'm the only one.
You talk about Harjay, how she survived.
Oh yeah, I have a friend that she was my uncle's friend's daughter, and she was so lucky. She's 10 years older than me, but she said when the boat was capsized, she fell into the water. She said she feel that she's sinking down to the bottom. Then she said when she rise up, she found this
life
reservoir in front of her. Then she grabbed it, and then she was safe.
And she didn't know how to swim either.
Right.
Yeah. But it's like the people who came out, they have to have money to pay the gold.
Yeah.
Second, you have to have good luck, because a lot of people they get pirate. I mean.
There's bad guys. There's no law out there. I mean, the law.
Right.
You're like operating against the law, so there's no police to protect you.
Right.
if pirates show up.
Yeah, yeah, on
Which
your
are-
own.
You remember your
Right.
story of Catherine and the pirates?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Her friend, it's in the book, her friend was on a boat. I mean,
Oh.
somebody she met later was on a boat, and the pirates came on the boat, stole everything, then punched a hole in the boat so it would sink. Remember this thing?
And then they were able to go to the oil. There's a oil
There's an
something.
oil derrick a few miles away.
They
Oh.
swam over there.
Catherine's husband swam to the derrick.
Okay, so
And
that's
got-
really so.
and
So
got-
so how did you come to the United States? How did you get from there to Queens?
And then I have a step in the boat in the in the first chapter. I mentioned that my in Vietnam a man can have as many as wife you can. It's legal. So my father has a concubine, has a I mean like it's legally. I mean
Yeah, it's part of the
and
culture,
then,
different culture here. Yeah.
And she has a son. Then she's in America. Then I wrote him a letter. And then I asked him to sponsor me, but I didn't get his response. But then after a few months, then I got his letter that he said he moved. Then he sponsored me. That's how I got to New Jersey.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you go back to Vietnam. You guys go back to Vietnam to visit, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you go back?
I go back there. I just eat a lot of Vietnamese food. That's my main goal to eat.
You like the food?
Yeah, the food is very good and very cheap. The bowl noodle they speak like $1.50.
I love
$2.
Vietnamese restaurants. I discovered them in San Francisco, and I.
Oh, yeah,
there's
yes, yes.
a lot in San, and they're cheap and good.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
rice
like,
and pork and fish.
anything
and-
is good.
Yeah.
You close your eye, you go anywhere, you buy anything. Is good.
So you don't feel personal animosity. Do you feel you're Vietnamese American or Chinese American or just American? How do you feel about that? We only have half a minute.
I speak Vietnamese with the people who sell things.
Yeah.
But if I see my friend there, they speak Chinese, then I speak Chinese.
Wow,
I always speak, I
you're,
always speak English
so you're an
with them.
international person. You're a person of all these places, right? And English as
No.
well. Very good. Well, we only have half a minute, so I'm going to say, Among a Person of the World, an amazing story. Get the book, read the whole story. It's a fascinating book, a memoir of Vietnam among the boat people. Our guests is Chung and Jim Feast. And this is a book you can get on Amazon. It's published by Autonom Media, AK Press. If you guys are anarchists, you know all about the AK Press. And thank you for joining us and telling us your wonderful story. I'm glad you survived.
Thank you
Our
for having
pleasure.
us
Thank
here.
you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.